Hello and welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. And this is Series 2. Can you believe this? Oh my gosh, Series 2. This started just with like a dream of us, just conversations and
conversations in our living room.
And it still is conversations in a living room. But after 10 episodes of Series 1 going so well, and with so many really lovely guests we have that donated their time and brought an incredible amount of happiness, wisdom, love to this space. We are on Series 2, and Series 2 is going to kick off with somebody we love so much.
Absolutely.
It couldn't be any other way. She showed us how to see absolute love in everybody, how people are unstoppable when they want to do something and make some change for the world happen. So here with us, we have Jacqueline Hollows, and her episode today is called
Love on the Inside.
Yeah. She's full of love on the inside, isn't she?
She is.
Yes.
She is.
And we have a lot of people here that will be here to absolutely say that is totally true. So hello, Jacqueline, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. That's so sweet. Are you live on Facebook? It doesn't say that you are.
No, we're not. So
okay. You don't do that. Okay. Okay.
And then we'll go as a recording for it.
That's okay. I'm interfering where I don't need to.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because sometimes, like you go like, I'm recording, and there's no recording.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that lovely warm introduction and for having me on this. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and you are wonderful as well. So love on the inside. So when I was thinking about, Carolina asked me, what the topic might be, and I was thinking about what the topic might be, and there's so many things, isn't there, that we can talk about from this direction. And we wondered, shall I talk about business? Shall I talk about this? Shall I talk about that? But what people really want to hear is about prison, so I might as well talk about prison. And I thought, what's the biggest thing? What's the biggest takeaway for me? And it is that it's what we've seen around love. And so I'll just give you a little quick bit of background. So I am the founder of a social enterprise, which is a non-profit organisation called Beyond Recovery. And I didn't start in this field. I used to be in IT and customer service, and I had an insight. I fell in love with some people in the park one day who were in recovery from addictions and prison and all sorts of things. And I was on this journey then of I wasn't even that keen on the free principles, to be honest. And then all of a sudden I was on this journey, and I started working with people, and I started sharing really what I was seeing in them. So I started sharing that I could see how much potential they had, or how much resilience they had, or how determined they were. And these were mainly all people who were either in recovery from addictions, sometimes a lot of trauma, people who'd been in prison, and all sorts of walks of life, but they looked amazing to me, and they looked I was in awe of them. And so I just started to talk about how I could see something that they weren't seeing. And what was interesting in those early days was that those conversations were just conversations. I wasn't teaching them anything. We were just having conversations, and they were having insights, and they would see a little glimpse of what I was talking about themselves. So I got really intrigued as to why that was the case, and how that was working. I didn't really understand how that was working. And one of the main things was that one day I thought, wow, if all these people are amazing and can do anything, then that must be true for me too. So I was like, wow, I must be amazing then in that case. And, in our culture, we're not used to saying that, are we? But I started to look more about what was good about me and what was loving about me and what was true about me, instead of what I'd been looking at before, which was a lot of insecurity. So I had a lot of self-doubt. I thought I was, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. I thought that I'd get found out one day. And I got on with life, but I had a lot of insecurity and stress and worry. And then these amazing people showed me that human beings are incredible creatures, incredible, creative, loving creatures, and that we have all this wealth of resilience and this well of being inside. So I just wanted to work with them because I fell in love with them, and I felt this immense feeling, and that led me to prison, and that led me to working in prison with people. And I'll tell you how naive I was. I told this story recently, and it was in 2015, and I'd won this contract with Onley Prison, and I was there. I'd been trained, I'd been sort of the prison inductee, and when they train you, they scare you to death. So they tell you how everyone's going to try and manipulate you, that you're not even allowed to post a letter for somebody. So if somebody says, and they have done, if somebody says, I meant to send this card to my mom and I missed the post, can you post it? You're not even allowed to do that, because they might be grooming you to manipulate at some point. And they tell you all, and they show you this great big cabinet full of what are called shanks, so weapons that people have made out of toothbrushes and all sorts of things. And then they tell you about what to do if you get taken hostage. And then they tell you about what to do if you find someone hanging in their cell. And so after all of this training, if you're still around, that's the test, it's completely horrifying. And so I'm there on my first day, about to run my first group, and I've had all this training, and I'm thinking, what can I do, what can't I do? And I've got this list, and you're not allowed to let anyone in the room that's not on the list. And I was standing on this, they call them wings, where the men live, and I was standing on this wing, and at the weekend there'd been an incident. So often in them days, the men would then get locked up longer. So if there's an incident, everyone gets locked up. And I don't know if you can imagine a 9x4 cell, which also has your toilet, and being locked inside there for 23, 24, 72 hours, with little tiny windows with bars on them. And so they get a bit impatient, So I'm standing on the wing with my list, and my room's all ready with the chairs in a circle and my flip chart. And the men are banging their cups on the doors of their cells. So there's all this banging, and I thought, it's like the TV, you know, it's like they're going to come out and riot or something. And so I'm insecure, I'm scared, and I think to myself, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? And I paid for some expensive coaching training prior to this. And I was like, I thought I'd be in Hawaii or somewhere, you know, like there I am on this dirty wing, smelly. It was smelly, I have to say, smelt of cabbage and socks and things. You know, boys, let's start like a boys' room. And I thought, what am I doing? And anyway, the men came out, and they're, you know, like they have no tops on, and they're running around and they're shouting, and there's music. And I'm there trying to be all tough. And this man came up to me, and he said, I'm sorry for anybody that's already heard this, but he said, can I see the chicks, miss? And he was a big guy with a shaven head and a tattoo on his neck, and looked tough to me. And I was like, oh, you know, what's your name? And he said whatever his name was, which I don't know. And I looked at my list, and he wasn't on my list. And I thought, what am I going to do? Anyway, I said yes. So I let him in the room, and he moves my flip chart out the way, and I thought he's going to stare at the female officers that lined the route, because they line the route to make sure that nobody escapes. And he moved the flip chart, and on the windowsill is this nest, and these little tiny pigeon eggs, dove eggs, on this nest, like a real scrappy, dirty nest, but there's these little tiny eggs. And he said, I'm out next week, and I wanted to see, you know, I'd like them to hatch before I leave. Wow. I was absolutely in bits, because, and I say that he saved beyond recovery, because in that moment I was so humble, because I wanted to be there. Like, this was my vision, to go and be there and share in prison. And yet I had all this invisible thinking, all this judgment, all these insecurities, all of this fear that would have got in the way. And because he did that, and because I saw the humanity of him, I just saw the humanity of everybody after that. So as the men came into the room, all of that judgment had dropped away, and I was just very humble and very grateful to be there. So, you know, sometimes people ask me what's it like working in prison, and now I would tell you something different. But at the time, you know, I was scared, and I did have a lot of insecurity. And now, 5 years later, I can tell you that me and the team that I've been so lucky to work with walk out of prison, and we will often say that was the best day of our lives. You know, what we see in those rooms, the big hearts, the compassion, the truth, the humanity, the gratefulness, what we see falling away from people when they see their true selves, when they really start to connect with who they really are inside, and not who they've either been labelled or labelled themselves or been living with. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. It's an amazing thing. And what's been the most startling is that those men, and I have worked with women a little bit, but mainly men, those men, and some of them are big, hairy, you know, scary men, little puppies full of love. And they they just bounce around, and they cry and they care for each other. And one of the things that you're not allowed to do is you're not allowed to mix like people who, let's say, people who have got debt and addiction problems with people who might be, say, gangsters and drug dealers, like, obviously, because that's probably not a good mix. However, we don't take any notice of that, and if someone wants to be in the group, they're welcome. And what has been amazing is that the men who you think would be the ones that they would say that they would bully or whatever, they get to see the people who are very vulnerable, and they get to care for them. I remember one guy who really sort of had a big life on the outside, a really big life, and was very, like, used to have, I don't know if this is good or not, but used to sleep with porn stars and have fast cars, and had like a big life. And he was very, very attractive man. And there was another man in the group who was very, very vulnerable, lots of mental health issues, lots of addiction issues. And sometimes those men get used to, like, test the drugs out and things like that. And he was completely crazy. He kept saying, "I'm tapped." He was completely crazy. And this man came to love this man. He gave him clothes. He helped him if he needed to shower. They just come to love each other because they see each other in the room as one, and they go there. And once they've gone there, there's no turning back. And they were the most supportive and the most helpful to that young man, who unfortunately did pass away later on. But he was the most brightest spark in that room. And he he did used to cause quite a lot of stirred the room up, because he used to jump about and do all sorts of things. But he kept coming and he kept coming. And then one day he said, "You know how you feel when you listen to some music that you really love, and all your heart and all your body gets full of all this love, and then all you want to do is go out and share it. So that's how I feel right now." And you could see that that's it, isn't it? If we have that opportunity to just feel that, that's enough. Now, his life didn't suddenly, transform into an amazing life, but the fact that he felt that everyone else could feel it, and then everyone else became more compassionate and understanding of him, and as they became more compassionate and understanding, he calmed down. And it's just like this virtuous circle. And we always say, like, they teach themselves, because all we're doing is helping them to teach themselves, and they teach themselves, and the room teaches itself. And yeah, I'm just really grateful. I don't know if I rabbited on too long there.
No.
I'll end with a little story about Charlie, because Charlie unfortunately did get out of prison, and he came into a lot of money, and he took a big overdose and he died. And his friend was still there, and we were running a group, and his friend told us that he'd died. And I was really, really upset by that, because I had a lot of hope for Charlie, and I was really upset by it, and shocked. And so I took a moment, and then I said to the group, one of the Fab Five, his name's Alfie, and Alfie taught me that in the travelling community, when somebody passes, they stay up all night and they tell stories of that person to commemorate, their life. And I said to all these guys in the room, I said, and the handsome guy that I told you about was there as well. And I said, could we do what Alfie's taught me, and could we talk about Charlie and tell some stories about, our memories of him? And I started off, and every single man in that room told a sweet story about Charlie. And we spent most of the group just talking about that. I mean, if that's not love, what is? Does anyone want to ask anything or or tell me anything?
And I tell you, Jacqueline, one of the things that it's not only that you've gone and going to find love inside places that we are, we have this perception that because somebody has made a mistake or several mistakes and have acted on something that wasn't the right thing or to do in a way, and end up in prison, that it is like prison break sort of thing. It is like what we see in the movies, and many of us therefore are sort of uneducated as the community, and then we're not kinder to think, well, even we could go and maybe just visit people that don't have anybody to see, or we don't know. That's part of it, that we think that it's right that they're punished, or it's right they deserve to be there because of whatever they've done, and we stop seeing the human beings behind, and that is suddenly a mistake that anybody could. It could happen to anybody.
100%.
We could act on a thought that we actually have somebody we know that it's an absolutely lovely person, and we knew he's gone to prison, and we're just like completely surprised, and it was nice to see. It was an eye opener in terms of like, okay, yeah, and anybody in a way. It's just like any human being could act on something like that. And so you didn't just go and follow your heart and work on that. Then what happened was you came out and you went to, especially to the London Three Principles Conference, and then you brought letters, and you brought stories, and then you brought them in as they managed to be able to go out of prison, and we heard them talk about it. And so that education didn't stop inside there.
Yeah.
That education, that hope, that then came out to teach all of us what we haven't seen.
That's why, because before shall I talk to that?
Yes.
Before I did this work, I didn't really think about people in prison. I would say that I didn't really have a social conscience. I just wasn't really aware. I just got on with my life. I did what I did. I was nice to people when I was nice to people, but I didn't think that I could be a person that could fix something in the world that wasn't right. And when I became aware of that, and some of the human beings that I have worked with have done really bad things, you know, I've worked in a high security prisons, which is for people who have done stuff that is not good, you know. But the people aren't bad. The people themselves aren't bad, and they weren't born bad. They had a problem with understanding how their mind was working. They had a problem with understanding where thought was coming from. They had a problem with understanding that they even were the thinker. And I don't condone what people have done. I don't condone what I've done when I've been in a low state of mind, right? I don't think that doing bad things is good or right. And I'm very empathic to victims of crime, and I've been a victim of crime myself. But when I found what I found, when I found that, wow, these are people that I either most of us don't take any notice of, or we think bad people go to prison and that's that, you know, lock them up and throw away the key, which is the first chapter of my book, by the way. But when I discovered that, when I discovered these amazing people, first of all, who were in recovery from addiction and then in prison, I became, and right from the start, very passionate about changing the public perception. And that's why, I mean, I was absolutely petrified of public speaking, but I felt like I needed to get those stories out there, and I needed to overcome, you know, we were talking about overcoming barriers. I used to literally die. If you put me on here, I'd be shaking and shivering and, oh, let me just talk. And then come off, you know, and cry. And I'm not exaggerating. It was really bad for me, my fear. But I was so passionate about changing public perception, so that people could see what I could see, that I overcame that. And that's why I put myself forward. And that's why I went to the conference, which was so petrifying for me. And the way I see it is that if one person walks away with a different mindset about other people, not necessarily people in prison, but other people, then that's the job done. You know, then the ripple effect of that. Because ultimately, if you want to be very analytical about this and logical about this, punishment doesn't work. Or maybe it works on a very small percentage of people, but punishment doesn't work. Locking people up, punishing them, giving them, I mean, the people I work with, the hardest to reach people, and they're called that because they're the people that other interventions don't work for. You know, a lot of people will go to prison, it'd be like, oh my God, I'm never going back to prison again, and that's enough, you know, because they have an insight that helps them to change their life. But some people have lived on the fringes of society and on the margins of society, don't respect authority anyway. There is no point in punishing those people. You know, you've got to sort of go to them with love and find out what's going on. And then from there, you can show them, you can have them come and meet you halfway. We ran a 3 principles seminar in prison, and the men ran it. Like, I didn't speak, the men spoke. We had 12 men, I think it was, and they helped to prepare it. They made a brochure, they made the agenda. They did the meet and greet we had 27 members of the public come, and the men told me afterwards they never ever thought that a normal member of the public would want to listen to them. So the stigma goes both ways. You know, we're out here going, oh, that's somebody else's problem, and they're in there going, well, they don't want to talk to us. How's that going to change the world? And so my passion is about bringing that together. It's about bringing us all together and saying, well, you're just a person with a lot of skills, actually, because they've got loads of skills, and you're just a person with a lot of skills, and we're both human beings, and like why don't we just get on with it? And I love that somehow that message is getting out, and it doesn't have to get out to the whole world, but the people, if one person walks away, and someone told me once, after she came to visit our guys in Unley, she then realized she had judgment against homeless people, and she'd not even seen it before, but she would cross the street or avoid, like many of us do. And then she realized, wow, I've got all this fear about, I can't speak to that person, I haven't got anything in common. And so she went and volunteered in her local homeless shelter after that. To me, that's it. If one person's had that stigma drop away, then that's good enough. And I know from the conference that you're talking about, where I read out Dave's letter, many people were impacted by that. And so I always see that I have two jobs. One is to wake up the guys and the girls to who they really are, and then wake up humanity to who they really are. And then it's like a two-pronged attack. Coming from love.
Well, because I guess also then we need to build those bridges as well, as like, as you say, so when they are allowed to come out of prison and then they find all this stigma and all these problems and trying to reinsert themselves into society, or going back to the sort of, like, I guess, the sort of surroundings. There were we heard Chris Wren, who's here today, and he's going to be closing this series, and we are so excited. On, like, he came out, as far as I heard, like, with this passion about sort of like sharing this with the people that are around him, so that potentially will make others not get into the system, and then people not return into the system, and so the exponential potential of that, the exponential, that's a good word. I like that. So and I guess also we heard about the ripple effects that it had on the people that hear this, share that with their families, and then their families outside starting changing. And then the prison guards starting getting curious and changing. And
that has happened, that has actually happened. So we've had officers, because we run an officers event, and we've had officers come to that and then go into teaching hypnotherapy, because they're like, oh no, I don't want to be a prison officer anymore. But also we've worked with officers who then, so this guy told me once that there's the officer, there's the guy, this guy's kicking off. The officers see that all day long, right? They're getting this stress all day long. So you can't say all bad officers because they're doing this, and then they're in their heads. And then a guy comes and says, can you do this for me? And it's like the 100th thing that he's been asked for today, and he hasn't got time and everything else. He snaps, the guy kicks off. You can see how this just all of a sudden there's a big clash. And we worked with this officer, and he said, the guy kicked off. He always does it. He always kicks off. And he went whoosh where he used to go. And then he looked at him and thought, oh, hang on, what is it that he's asking for? And just that thought just literally calmed him. And he said, don't speak to me like that. Just calm down and then tell me what you're asking for. And the guy's like, who's he? Normally, he gets into it with me. so just one person has to be the one who can take a step back, or who can come from a different place, and then the whole situation's changed. So he's able to manage much more now all that angst that goes on, and there's a lot of angst that goes on in prison. I mean, it's noisy, there's lots and lots of noise. So if you're not someone who knows about your well-being or knows about your quiet mind, you can just get caught in that, whether you're a person who lives there or whether you're a person who's working there. And so we love it when we work, you know, me and the guys all want to work with both, you know, with everyone. In fact, like, you work with the officers and the prison residents and the families and the youth, then you start to create, you know, these things aren't going to happen so much anymore. And it's not even that I don't think that people should be put in prison, but I think prisons should be rehabilitative. You know, they should be centres for health and well-being and understanding and listening. I mean, when Chris talks, he'll no doubt tell you about listening. You know, no one tells them about listening. No one tells most of us about listening, right? We all think we got it, but we don't really listen to anybody. And just that makes a massive difference. If there's a man told us once, and Chris knows this guy, he came to, I did some starter introduction classes, because we had 90 people on the waiting list at the peak of working in Onley. And but sometimes then they wouldn't show up, or, you know, all sorts of things happen in prison. And so to filter out the ones that were serious, I ran these introduction classes, and I had so much fun, because I didn't try and teach anything. I was just like, right, ask me anything, ask me whatever you want to know. And like, it was a riot. So not a literal riot, you know. Wrong word. And anyway, this guy is like, yeah, and he's real sort of like sure of himself. And he goes, yeah, I'm an NLP like expert or whatever, and he'd learnt it from the library, and he was teaching everybody else. So he was helping people. He was already helping people. And I was like, yeah, okay, yes, that's good. And he kept banging on about NLP. So as he left, I said, you might want to leave the NLP at the door when you're in these classes. And it's like, oh, all right, because he's a bit of a smoothie, so he'd never say anything to my face. And it's like, oh, okay. Anyway, apparently he went off and he thought, yeah, I'll leave Beyond Recovery at the door. Like, yeah, who are you talking to? And someone else was running the group, and he was in that group, and he did not think anything of it. But I'd given him The Enlightened Gardener by Sid Banks and the Missing Link, and all the boys read those books. And about session 4, it was a 10-week program. At session 4, some of the boys were saying, wow, in The Enlightened Gardener I saw this, and in The Missing Link, it was like a book club, you know, and like they're telling about their insights from reading Sydney Banks's books. And this guy says, it's like, really? So that night, when he's behind his door, he thought, I'll have to have a look at those books. So he picks them up, and then he read it. He read the first one, and he was like, wow, that's amazing. And then he read the second one, and he had a third one, and he read them all again. So he said he stayed up all night reading these books, and in the morning he threw away his drugs, his tobacco, and his pornography. And he chucked it all out. And he said, I didn't even want to give it to anybody else, because I don't want to contaminate other people's minds. He just literally, it was like, wow, that's it. And he said he couldn't even see the female officers. He didn't use that word, but he couldn't see the female officers in the same way anymore. He didn't look at them as objects anymore, you know, and it's just like totally changed. And but the funny part about leaving the beyond recovery at the door. And that's the thing, is that we could go in and we could think we've got something to teach people. And I tell you, that doesn't go down very well, because these guys have the best BS tester that you could ever know. Like, if you are not coming directly from the heart, they know. They sniff it out. And so because we've gone in with, and to me, the big, if anybody comes to work with me or anybody comes to sit in, I always say, the main thing is you've got to love the guys. Everything else I can teach you, but you've got to love if you don't love the guys, you're not in the right place. You know, if you've got some reservations or whatever, everything else can be taught. And we turn up with that attitude of, I know that you are a loving, perfect human being with potential, with so much potential and resilience. And I don't care what I'm seeing on the outside, because I know what's inside there. And we keep turning up with that. And you can talk about curriculums, and you can talk about this and you can talk about that, but that's all you need, that and listening. And you turn up to a space and you listen to someone and keep going back to that, knowing that they're okay and that you're okay. Magic happens. It's as simple as that. And you can call it what you like. Got to hear from you, Chris. What are you thinking of all of this?
Let us unmute. Let people unmute themselves. So just one sec, Chris, so you can. He's unmuted himself now. I think you are okay. And before anybody talks, I want to say that please share whatever you want to share here. And if there's anything that you would like us then not to be put on publicly, what we'll do is basically we just don't show your face or your name. We'll edit it out, and we put the question, and then you'll see Jacqueline and us answering. So please let us know if there's something you don't want it to go. But this is just a small group where it just stays here, okay? So Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. Hello, my name is Christopher Wren, co-founder of Beyond Truth. And Mama J brought me through the ranks from Beyond Recovery. I'm a known criminal, ex-drug user. Been in the criminal justice service for about, in the system for about half of my life. I'm 32 now, so half of my life. And it's not third time lucky, it was fourth time lucky for me. And the more and more I was going in jails, I was not coming out with no new ideas, but more ideas to get money in the wrong ways, or never connecting with people. So the more I'm going back in jail, I'm just learning more about negativity, not even about life. It didn't come until probably my third sentence, when I probably grew up, stopped hanging around with certain peers that I wanted to learn, wanted to listen. So I started to do a drug program because I was very addicted to cocaine. So I done the 12-step program. That kind of humbled me in terms of there's a problem, because I was always denied. But that kind of humbled me. But still never learned, still never felt love, because the love I did feel, I did think I was feeling was not the love that the universe and the world needs. It's love, that materialistic love, not the love that comes from within. So the love I always thought was given, or was given, was the wrong love. Was the wrong love. Was the absolutely wrong love. And in 2015, I believe, something I did, and with the grace of God, it was the wrong thing I did, but it led me into Only. And this time around, I don't know. I was in a dark place because I was in a relationship at the time, and I felt alone. I felt alone again, and that's the worst feeling for a human being, to feel alone. And I thought she was going to stay around, but she didn't. And at that time, yeah, my head was all over the place. I wasn't doing my sentence. I was more in my thoughts about what can I do, how I can try and reconnect with my loved one, how can I try and rebuild this relationship that's already done, but that was it. And anything to get myself. So I came across Beyond Recovery. And these times here, I was just doing it to get myself. But, and it wasn't even the first lesson. Like, it probably took me a while until actually the hatch broke. You know what I mean? Until the hatch broke, because I was still up in myself. And I thank Mama J for being patient, for actually taking her time. Liliana and everyone else in Beyond Recovery for taking their time with us. But I started to do the program. And for me, what was the turning point for me was basically listening. Because I was, once again, I'm 32-year-old. Now I'm listening, but at the time, I thought I was listening. Not even to myself, but just listening. Like, people don't listen. And I realized that. And I didn't know that at the time. When you actually do listen, you hear a lot. You actually hear a lot. You hear more than what you have to, but you hear a lot. You know what I mean? So like, listening was, I think, the turning point in my life when it became real. Like, wow. Just taking my time to even listen to myself and giving that love back to me, because I always felt alone. And it goes back to the title of this show, How to Connect with Humans. When I was up in my soul, up in my head, I'm not allowing today be today. So any new thoughts, any new people I'm gonna meet, with that, me being my head and having a frown of yesterday's problems or the future's problems, not allowing me to resonate with today's connection. You know? So just being humble and not being in my head and being present allows me to experience new way of life. Like, even what happened today, like, just me being humble and being the person I am. I had a job interview come out of nowhere, and I wasn't expecting it, didn't go for it, but just being present. And it's hard. Don't think it's not easy, because there's things that still go on in my life. But if I allowed it to be in the forefront, I won't be seeing the miracles of life and the joys of life and the simplicity of life as well. So certain times we make it difficult for ourselves. So just keep it simple sometimes. And I'm only speaking about myself because I used to keep it moving. Yeah, I used to keep it moving. But now I slowed down and I just appreciate life as it comes, one day at a time. And and it's allowed me to connect with more and more people, and with you as well. I wouldn't have been here in this platform if I never took my time to listen and to find myself and to be around these lots. So this is how I'm connecting, and this is what I want to bring to. This is what Beyond Truth are trying to do: spread the word out to the world and stop prisoners from reoffending, and try and find them hope whilst they're on the outside, because it is like I said, it was the fourth time lucky for me. I don't want that cycle to continue on for other people. So this is why I'm here as well.
It's lovely. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Oh, Chris, we love you so much.
We do.
You
I
got
love
your
you
own.
too.
You got your own spot. Get off mine. I mean, it's so lovely. One of the things that that came to me, you know, early on was to try and gather everybody into what we called the Beyond family, and of course you like there are some amazing volunteers and people who've worked with me and stuff like that, but you're mainly on your own. You know, you're mainly sort of trying to juggle everything on your own. But what's been amazing is that some of those ideas, which were just like, oh, this sounds like a good idea and I'll do my best I can and I'll try and meet with the guys once a month and whatever. I'm so glad that I followed them, because that connection just kept everything going. And these 5, you know, they're just amazing, and they've all known each other in a different life and in prison, and now here they are, you know, going out and helping other people and stopping other people from that path and pointing other people back to themselves, and then being all surprised and cute when people want them to work for them. So it is quite amazing, and it all comes from that same source, as you guys know from what you're doing. You know, it's exactly the same. All of us, every single person is a creative source of energy, and it doesn't matter what that comes out like. It doesn't matter if that's creating a thing where you go into prison or whatever, or work with vets, or, you know, whatever amazing things people do. You can just make the food from there, you know, for your family. You can walk your dog from there. You can, like the cat, you know, I have a better relationship with the cat now because I give her attention when she comes in. She expects to be brushed, and she expects you to have a little chat with her and everything. And when I didn't do that, it's like the cat comes in, you know. So what, the cat comes in, I'm in my head, she's in her head, and now the cat comes in and it's like, okay, I'll stop what I'm doing and I connect with the cat, and she likes it and I like it, and it's so simple. And it regrounds me back to what life is really about, which is about connection.
I love that, because I'm the same with my cats. Literally, we've got one on the table across the other side of the room, literally just lying down, and she's in her own feeling.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And before I had my cats, the only cat that I really liked was Carolina's. That was it. And she loved me. She could hear my voice and she was literally meowing like anything. She still does. Yeah, she loves me.
Wow.
And when I got mine, it was just the love I felt for them.
Yeah. And
the love that I had at 4 o'clock this morning when one of them decided to try and wake me up. He just came onto the bed and was just like, I want some fuss. And instead of me kind of just going, I'm asleep, just leave me alone, I just sat there and just gave him the attention and the love, and I felt the love back.
Yeah.
And the love from yourself, from Chris, from everyone along this series and series 1 is just incredible. And there's just no words for it.
It's the only thing that matters. You know, here it is. All you need is love. It's the only thing that matters, because sometimes we can get caught up with, me too, I can get caught up with trying to change the world, trying to make these things better. You know, people say, oh, well, what about this? You know, like the terrible domestic violence that's going on through lockdown, and the children that are with abusive or people with alcohol or drug problems or whatever. There's some terrible stuff that's going on, and we can get caught up with that when we're on our little airy fairy love train, and we can think, oh yeah, well, what about that? But the thing is that by not hiding the love, you can find solutions for that. You can be thinking about that and following insight that you get about that to help change that situation. Because I would love to work with the perpetrators of domestic violence. You know, there's plenty of people want to work with the victims. I want to work with the perpetrators, because do you know what? They need a lot more love in their lives. Because if they saw their true selves, they wouldn't do what they do. They just wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. In Nottingham, which Chris has worked with me in Nottingham prison, but on this particular group where Derek was actually, he facilitated a class where 2 rival gang members were in the room. And that's another thing that we're not supposed to have, but somehow that happened. And the one man had been on the course before, and he, I think he'd seen something around just feeling a bit better about life. You know, sort of didn't have a massive insight, but he liked what he heard. And he came back to group, like Chris said, to get out of his cell, which is what most people come for initially. And he came along and he started talking about a situation where I think it was his cousin who died in his arms. And when he was talking about it, this other guy who was in prison for that thing realised who he was. And the other guy, you know, let's call him Kay. Kay said, in that situation, it's do or die, basically. You have to get them before they're going to get you. And so he's there thinking, oh, right, okay, what am I going to do about this? And, you know, how he's going to get this guy. And the guy starts saying things like, you know, I don't want this life anymore. I don't want any more people to die in my arms. And he's thinking, oh, I've had that thought. And then he started thinking, he's saying what I want to do. He's saying the same things that I feel. And it comes to the end of the group, and Derek's chatting to the guys, and he realizes, because the one says, do you know who I am? And the other one says, well, I think I do now, you know, and they're like, what we're going to do about it? And he said, well, I don't want to do anything about it. And he said, well, I don't want to do anything about it. So they made a truce, and they shook hands, and they're only young. They're young men, and they went off, and Derek's gobsmacked, you know, so he told us all about it. And we thought, will it last? You know, what happens when they speak to their brethren? You know, it's like all this lot. And the next day, we're like cautious about what's going to happen. And they came back to group. And Kay said when he heard Jay talking, he thought, if I hurt him, I'm hurting myself, because we're the same. And Jay felt the same. And so that there ends that war, you know. I mean, and it's a war, you know, it's 2 rival gangs. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And they said, well, we need to build a big glass wall, and we need to have all the rival gangs on each side, and then we'll teach them this, and then we can all smash the wall down and have a big hug. And I thought, well, that's two young people with this, real cute idea. That's going to change their communities, because they're going to have problems when they come out. Of course they are. And you wouldn't believe the problems that these guys have. But they're going to have problems when they come out. But they're going to come out knowing that if I hurt another human being, I hurt myself. That's going to change them. And it's going to change the people around them. And it may take some time. And they may hurt someone else along that journey. But gradually, that will change. And wow, I mean, that's huge, right?
That is absolutely huge.
That's amazing.
We're all joking. Oh my gosh. Let's see if somebody else has a question or a reflection, or you want to share something.
Dave Hill.
Dave, yeah. Dave is going to be in the series.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for
you.
coming. I'll try and be at yours.
Well, it's quite difficult for me to make these normally, because I've normally got the girls on a Wednesday, so I haven't at the moment for the holidays. So it was a nice opportunity to jump in, and there you were. So that's fantastic. I've got a bit of a practical question. You mentioned that it would be great to speak to both the guys that are serving their time and the staff. Are you actually allowed to bring them together to have conversations, or does it have to be separate?
It's a great question. Currently we're not allowed to do anything, but in normal circumstances, no, that hasn't been possible, but it is my dream. And I think how it will eventually happen is probably outside, where you might get officers and guys who've been residents working together, and then that might filter. But at the moment, it's a big no-no, because the officers are trained not to give any personal information away, not to show any vulnerability. So it would be very difficult to have them in group where everyone's crying. And so that's a barrier. And then the guys, of course, initially will have their reservations. I mean, generally by the end of groups, guys are always saying, oh, you need to teach the officers need this more than us. So I could see, it's my dream where you would have everyone working together and realising each other as a human being. In fact, Alan just went in to Onley, and there was a mediation conversation going on with a couple of officers and a guy who has suicidal ideation, and they were all talking, and Alan could observe when the guy gets in his head, when the officer gets in his head, why there was a better relationship with the guy and the female officer. And so he brought that to the table, and actually that really changed the dynamic, and you could see how successful. So that could be a way in. But yeah, it's a difficult one at the moment.
No, that's fair. I was just had a thought about that just now, actually. You could potentially anonymize the whole thing, because you work across a couple of prisons, don't you? So you could almost, without doing it from a video point of view, record a session where people don't talk about names, and you could play the conversation either way, having removed that, just so that they can see, oh yeah, there is another group of human beings in this place that are trying to survive as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very much, I'm putting words in their mouths and through my view, but it's a bit of a survival game for both groups.
It is.
And yeah, I sort of know what that's about.
It's quite sweet what you said there, because I just imagine that in their civvy clothes, you can't necessarily tell who would be a resident and who would be an officer. Some of the officers are very much tattooed and everything else, and some of the lads look like people who work in banks. So you can sometimes you will make assumptions, but you could have a mixed group of people and not know who was who. That would be quite fun to do. Yeah, and then go, aha, that was an officer.
Big reveal.
Aha, yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we have Michelle. Let's unmute you. And
There we go.
you're muted, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
Hello. First of all, I just wanted to say what I think you guys are doing is absolutely incredible. I've just been blown away. I've had a couple of thoughts while you were talking. Well, probably not a couple, probably much more than I would like to admit. But anyway, I think for me, it's a case of, do you know what? Any one of us has the potential to do something based on a thought that could land us in prison.
Yeah.
That doesn't make us a bad person. That just means we've taken action on a thought that we might not have otherwise done another day.
Yeah.
And the other thing, sorry, there's a few things popping in my head now. The other thing is that what you said about, prison, and there should be, places where people they should be rehabilitation centres. And do you know what? To take away someone's freedom is punishment enough, as far as I see it anyway.
Yeah.
If you take away someone's freedom, that's a massive punishment. And they're human too, and they just deserve to be loved and honoured, and just all of what you do, basically. And the other thing was, I heard something the other day, and it was only the hurting hurt.
That's right.
And that really, really resonated with me, because I just thought, someone could be rude to you, someone could do something really horrible, but they're hurting too, and because they are human.
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing that's just popped into my head, sorry, I won't take over too long, but we all walk around with this, and you described it beautifully when you said about this like massive guy with a shaved head and a tattoo on his neck. We all walk around with this kind of subconscious bias, and I won't go into the whole story because it's a long story, but I had a situation with a homeless guy, and it completely, at the time, I thought it wasn't a particularly nice experience. But afterwards, you know how sometimes challenging times in your life can be the biggest gifts.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I just thought to myself, my God, that guy is only doing what he's doing because he's hurting so much. And if we can all just bloody well get over ourselves and be decent human beings to each other, God, wouldn't this be such a much better world?
Yeah.
And just bless you, and bless you, Chris, and bless you, Carolina and Wayne, because I just think you're all amazing. I think everybody's amazing, but you're particularly amazing because I know you. So just thank you for sharing, because it's just so inspiring. This series is inspiring. Listening to you, listening to Chris, just the whole thing is so inspiring, and it makes me. And I spoke to Carolina yesterday, and she knew that I'd got overexcited. I don't know. I just want to help the whole world, a bit like you know. And you were talking about the perpetrators of domestic violence, and there are two victims in that. There are two victims there, because you know one's hurting, and unfortunately that hurting person is hurting someone else, but they are still both victims, and they're both still human. And I won't wobble on anymore, because I could take Carolina and Wayne know I can talk for England. But just thank you for sharing, and Chris, and thank you Carolina and Wayne for just hosting this amazing, it's the whole thing is just mind-blowingly, I'm just in awe of all of you. Thank you. Right, I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you.
Michelle. Oh gosh.
That I will just respond to that briefly, because that stirring, that inspiration you feel is you. You can't get inspired without something stirring in your own soul. And the simplest thing is not to try to then go and change the world, but just see what's in front of you and do that, and take that step. And it might be tiny, seem insignificant, but that's the step that takes you, you know, from that feeling. You can't take the wrong step. We get very overexcited and like, oh, do this, I'm going to do that, and do it, you know, overwhelm ourselves, and we want to climb mountains before we've even, you know, walked down the road. But the thing is that inspiration will show you a very simple step to take, and that's the step. And it's a bit like, I was there's an expression, on the bone of my arse. Like, I was on the bone of my arse. I had nothing. I was literally wiped out financially a few years ago before I started this. I went through a very difficult time. I lost everything, and I was trying to be a coach, and I had all these lofty ideas about what I was going to do. And this opportunity kept coming up. Like, I could have this opportunity to be the support worker for somebody who was at university who had some disabilities and needed someone to write his essays. And I was like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. You know, I could do this. It kept coming up. God bless him, he kept offering it to me, and it kept coming up. And eventually I was like, oh, I must be mad turning that down, you know, because it financially, it meant that I could pay my bills for a start off, and it helped him. So I was like, oh, very reluctant, God, kicking and screaming into it. He introduced me to all those recovery people, because he was in recovery from addiction.
Wow.
He introduced me to the person who got me into prisons. Like a couple of, I ended up volunteering for his company, but I would never have known that when I was going, no, I'm doing this, and the universe kept saying, here it is, here it is, here it is. I'm like, no, I'm doing this. And when I just followed that, even though I did follow it reluctantly, that was my pathway into now. And so now I just think, you know, look at the things that you don't want to do that keep popping up.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
Okay. That'll be hoovering and dusting right now.
Yeah, same.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I was having the same discussion with Carolina yesterday, and you know, when I think I was getting overexcited, and you know, because I've had a massive transformation, like literally in such a short period of time. I've gone from mental illness to mental health. It feels like, well, it was literally in a moment. And I think you've just got to follow. The universe is like giving you signals the whole time, and I think if you can just take that leap of faith and follow that, whatever that might be, and it might just be to call Mary Bloggs up the road or something, that can be your lead in to whatever it is.
Right.
So
that's right. And look for that simplicity, because the way I see it, it's a bit like when you want to go for a wee. Like when you want to go for a wee, your body tells you want to go for a wee. Now, you either follow that or you don't. If you don't, bad things happen. If you do, and it's as simple as that, you get a nudge in the right direction, which might look very plain and simple and normal, and you just follow that, and you just keep following that, and that leads to wherever it leads, and you just keep showing up.
Yeah, I've just had a massive insight. I'll share it with you separately.
No, you have to share it now. It's like we all want to know now.
Oh God. Well, do you know, when I was having a chat with Carolina yesterday, Carolina's my coach, just so you know. But it's as a result of like becoming, like, they're my brother and sister now, as far as I'm concerned, they're family. Carolina said to me yesterday, because I was all fired up and I was like, oh, I want to be a coach, And she said to me, to be a really good coach, you have to develop like these really deep listening skills. And I've kind of taken a step back today and got over myself again, my excitedness and what have you. And I just wonder, and this might not be a thing, I don't know. Carolina said to me, why don't I just sort of put it out there that I'm offering some deep listening to a few people or to whoever. So if there is anybody, Jacqueline, that you think could just do with someone to listen, that will help me, because it'll mean I get to zip it. And it helps the other person because they feel heard.
Thank you.
So please, and the same goes for Chris as well, if there's anybody that I can help in that way, it's a mutually beneficial thing. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I genuinely care. So maybe we'll link up afterwards, and if there's something I can help with, then great. If there's not, then another opportunity will show itself to me at some point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Can I say something to that?
Yes.
Michelle, you can listen to anybody you like. You don't have to wait for someone that needs to be listened to listen to them. You can listen to anybody, and they don't even have to know that you're doing it. Just be you, be comfortable being you, and see what magic happens for the person that you're spending time with. Because the love that everybody's talking about here is just connection, and that can happen with absolutely anybody and everybody. Jacqueline and Wayne have both talked about connecting with their cats. Connection between two beings is just that, and it's a thing that people feel, and you don't have to need someone particular to listen to. You can help anybody just by listening to them. So hopefully that takes a little bit of weight off trying to find the right person to listen to, because the world is full of people.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for that.
Wow.
I don't know how we're doing for time. I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to ask, share. And while we wait for that, I'll also Jacqueline was telling us a really, really cool story about her going to the shops like during quarantine, and also we had the experience of like connecting with our neighbor here who lives alone, and it was actually the cat. It's one of the cats that kept going to his house, and then he started giving him treats, and then so we started talking, and then one of the things I did during quarantine was I baked cakes.
She did, yeah.
And so then he said something about, like, we realized he was talking about, like, he was like just buying food from the supermarket, and he wasn't sort of like cooking food for himself. So one of the things I kept doing was just cutting pieces of cake and stuff and just going across, and from the distance just trying to either leave it on his doorstep or like, and that started a connection that now we sort of didn't want to bother him before, or we didn't know, and started a really lovely relationship where goes both ways, really.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's a great point that Dave makes there, because when you show up in the world with that intention, the people who need to be listened to come to you. Like when you show up like that, when you go shopping, or when you see your neighbor or your postman or the cat, and you're there present and listening, they'll feel listened to. And like Dave said, they don't even have to know that you're doing anything. They'll feel better. They'll walk away going, oh, glad I got that off my chest, or whatever. And that's enough. Not that we won't help you or anything, but Dave's right. You can do it anywhere. You can do it for yourself. That taking a step back and just listening to yourself and being kinder to yourself in the moment.
And Christopher says, I would love to help anytime. Keep the love going. So thank you. And we're obviously taking you for a lot of love and help. And I'm just reading the chat. Les and Marie had to leave, but they said it's like so lovely to see us, and thank you so much, and just magic. Love to you all. I have to go and help save seeds for growing food. There was a Leslie who is actually growing lots of things. So we may have to change the title of this on how to connect with beans or
how to connect with plants. There you go.
So if no one else has any questions, then I feel that we are at an end.
Yeah, so we'll give it a few seconds just in case somebody has a last. And
it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute. I think for me, thinking about like what we've spoken about today and prisons and things.
Oh, it's Christopher.
I've come to think that why are prisons called prisons? Shouldn't they be called something? Because I think we've got such a stigma about prisons. Why? Why have people got such a stigma about prisons? Why aren't they rehabilitation centres? Because that's what we really want to do. Yeah. We've got such, as a population of human beings, we've got such an idea about what prison is, and that, bad people go to prison. And as Michelle said, you only have to have one thought to do something bad, but that one thought is also somebody maybe screaming out for that love.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's knowing that that love's always there. Whether someone's in prison or not. And when they come out, it's not kind of, oh, well, you've been in prison, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't be in society. It's to show them love.
Right. That's a great moment to end it on.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you, everyone.
We can't thank you enough. And everybody here, it's such a group of amazing, amazing people. We are so lucky. And as I always say, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
So next week, but it's actually Monday. So Monday, and I think it's at 6 o'clock. Is it at 6?
I think it's at 6, yeah.
We'll confirm that. We're having Dr. Pettit and Dr. William, or Bill Pettit, as we call him Bill, because that's what we call him. And, and he.
That's his name.
So he used to be a psychiatrist. He's still a psychiatrist, but he's not practicing that now. And he's shared since he met Sid Banks and was one of the first actual physicians to meet Sid Banks and hear something really profound, which, as Chris was saying, I don't know if there's been many people that actually hear first time and go like that, apart from like Sydney Banks and Michelle. Most of us maybe have had a bit of a time going like, I'm not sure about this one. And
rolling the eyes.
Yeah, rolling the eyes. And then he did that for a bit, but then he heard something really deeply. And once he heard that, he started treating and seeing people pretty much without seeing what they were diagnosed for, or just human beings. And that changed so much, and has so much to share with so much passion. To me, it was a video that I saw nearly at the beginning of when I heard about the principles. And I heard a video with Bill Pettit talking, and he said, "You're not broken, you've never been, and you never will." And that, as Michelle was describing, that was my moment that I knew I wasn't mentally ill. I never will be. That I was sitting in perfect health. And it was a video. And that's why we know the importance of creating something like this, and the importance of having something that can be shared and used and recommend and whatever to people that we love. But he's going to be here on a Zoom call, so that's Monday, and it's incredible to have him here. So thank you ever so much to everybody, especially for Jacqueline to kick this off so beautifully. And we can't wait to see you again. And please share whatever you want. Tell us in the group. And if you have ideas, again, tell us in the group. And because we can all do something really nice together, I think.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.